AI never sleeps, and this week has been absolutely insane. We have a ton of real-time interactive video game generators which you can use right now. All of these are free and open source for you to download. This is the best video face swap or deepfake tool, whatever you want to call it, we have so far. Like, this looks exactly like the reference character in the photo. We have several extremely powerful audio lip sync tools. It can not only animate the person's face, but also their body, and this one can do multiple people at once. The World Humanoid Robot Games was held this week in Beijing, and it was pretty cute to watch. This AI can colorize an entire sketch animation with just one colored reference image, and this is the best and most accurate one we have so far. We have a new state-of-the-art clothes swapper and a lot more, so let's jump right in. First up, this AI is super useful. It's called Story to Board, and this can convert a story into a storyboard, like a series of panels illustrating the story. And it tries to keep all the characters and scenes and objects consistent across the images. So for example, if we input this really long story in text form, it's able to break this down into separate panels that look like this. For example, one panel could be this character gazing at the stormy sea, and then another panel would be her holding a message in a bottle, and note that the character, the lighting, the scene looks pretty consistent across these different panels. And then here's a washed up treasure chest, here is the character opening the chest. Or here's another example. Again, if you input an entire text story into here, it would break this up into separate illustrated panels. So here is the character witnessing a meteor shower. Here she's charting constellations. Here she's peering through a dusty telescope, etc., etc. By the way, you might have guessed that this is using Flux as the video generator. This definitely has this plastic Flux vibe to it. And then here are a ton of other examples for your reference. Now, in the interest of time, I'm not going to go over all of these, but really quickly, here's how it works. It uses a combination of two techniques. The first one is called latent panel anchoring, and the second one is reciprocal attention value mixing. So this first one basically helps keep the characters consistent across images using a shared reference image. And then for the second component, this basically blends the features of the reference image with the generated images to ensure consistency in details like facial expressions and hand shapes. Anyways, if you scroll up to the top of the page, they have released a GitHub, and if you scroll down a bit, they do provide instructions on how to download and run this locally on your computer. It doesn't say the VRAM requirements for this, but given that it's just using Flux in the backend, you could probably run this on most consumer-grade GPUs. Anyways, all the links are up here, so if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Next up, if you're in 2D animation, this tool is going to make your life way easier. So it's called ToonComposer, and here's how it works. You just need to input one colored image to use as a reference and only a few sketches of what you want the animation to be like. It doesn't even have to be continuous frames. And this AI can not only fill in the blanks between the frames, but it can also colorize everything. So this is an all-in-one tool that can automate the process of in-betweening and colorization, which would save animators a ton of time. And this is the best and most consistent one we have so far. Now this uses what is called region-wise control for even more consistency. So for example, if we input this colored image, well, as the video progresses, the train is going to move forward, and notice that without this region-wise control, the details of this train are just all messed up. But with region-wise control, the details of the train and the girl are preserved as things move around. So here are some examples for your reference. Notice that you don't even need to input a ton of frames. You just need like 1 or 2 frames, and it would fill out the motion of everything in between. Everything is very accurate. Now, I've featured several other similar tools before on my channel, such as ToonCrafter and AniDoc. And if you compare it with this new one, ToonComposer, which is on the bottom left, note that ToonComposer just outperforms the competitors in terms of accuracy and consistency. So this is currently the best sketch animation colorizer you can use right now. The nice thing is, if you scroll up to the top of the page, there's this code button up here, which will take you to their GitHub repo, and it looks like they've released everything already. So here are all the instructions on how you can download and run this locally on your computer. Notice that this uses WAN 2.1 from Alibaba, as the base video generator. This is one of the best open source video generators out there, and you can run this on most consumer grade GPUs. Anyways, if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Now, last week I featured Google's Genie 3, which allows you to generate playable worlds, or basically video games, in real time. And it generates all of this on the fly. Nothing was pre-designed. Now, Genie 3 is closed source, and it seems like they're not going to release it. But this week we have not one, not two, but 4 other open source interactive world generators, which you can use right now. It's kind of crazy how quickly these tools are popping up every week. Anyways, one of them is called MatrixGame 2.0, and this is an open source, real-time interactive world generator. For example, you can get it to generate this scene of some grassy field, and you can interact with it using inputs like your mouse and the WASD keys. Here's another landscape scenario. I'm also going to show you some other different perspectives and scenarios in a second. But as you can see, this is super responsive, and you can move around really quickly using the WASD keys. Here's another example. Now, it doesn't have to be just, a first-person perspective walking around in some 3D world. This can also be third person. So for example, you could view yourself driving a car from behind. Now, if your input image, which you use as the starting frame, has a map in the lower left corner, note that this also kind of knows how to animate the map as well as you move around. Now, it's not perfect, but it's still a pretty cool emergent behavior. Or here's another example of a GTA style scene where we are driving this car around and there's a map in the lower left corner. Here's another example. Again, everything is pretty decent. Notice that the light physics are also pretty correct. The reflections off of this car, as well as the shadow of this car, are correct. Keep in mind that this is essentially a video generator, so none of these worlds are actually pre-programmed or pre-designed. Everything is just generated on the fly as you move around. Now, MatrixGame 2.0 also has the ability to generate pretty long videos, up to a minute long, all in real time. So the video I'm playing for you here is a minute long, and these videos are at 25 frames per second. This is very impressive for a video generator. I mean, as you may know, generating videos takes a lot of compute and a lot of time, so the fact that they were able to make this interactive and in real time at 25 frames per second requires some pretty smart design. Now, this can generate different styles of video games. So for example, here we have a Minecraft-like example. Now, note that the underlying video generator behind this is the one and only Wan by Alibaba. This is currently the best open source video generator out there. And it functions kind of like a regular video model, which uses a diffusion transformer architecture. But in addition to this, it also injects this action module. In other words, it also takes in the mouse actions and the keyboard presses from the user and incorporates that into the video generation process. Of course, this is to make it interactive. Anyways, if you scroll up to the top of the page, the nice thing is they've released everything already. So if you click on their GitHub repo, it takes you to this page, and if you scroll down a bit, this contains all the instructions on how to actually download and run this locally on your computer. And then here they list out the compute requirements. So you do need an NVIDIA GPU with at least 24 gigabytes of VRAM and also 64 gigabytes of regular RAM. All the links are up here, so if you're interested in trying this out or reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Now, like I said, we have a ton of these 3D interactive world generators this week. So here's another one called Yan. And this one is even more powerful. It can generate high quality videos at 1080p resolution and 60 frames per second. And again, this is interactive and real time. So here are some examples. As you can see here, everything is much higher quality than MatrixGame 2.0. You can see the FPS at the top here. This is running at roughly 60 frames per second. And it actually has a decent understanding of all the objects in the video. So for example, notice that here, this character is unable to pass the gate if there are these electric currents. And then notice that the character also kind of accelerates on this ramp here, and then it's also blocked by the swinging ball, and it's unable to move until the ball swings out of the way. So it actually has a very good physical understanding of all the objects in this world. Here's another example showing how good it is at understanding the physics of everything. So as this character slides down this slide, it accelerates, and the physics of everything are very accurate. And here they also say that this has infinite length simulation. So you can basically keep playing this video game and keep generating this on and on. Here's another example. So the video is not just limited to a few seconds. Notice that again, it has a really good understanding of physics. So like if it jumps on these paths with arrows, then it actually moves along that path. Now this can take in both text and images for the starting frame. Plus you can also use a text prompt to guide the generation further. So here are some examples. The prompt is at the top here, and that's exactly the environment that it generates. And then here's another example. The prompt is a brick alleyway, etc., and that's kind of what you get. Or here's another example where the prompt is an open air desert, and this is also very accurate. You can also specify prompts for different styles and structures. So for example, you can change this from a sci-fi violet theme to a golden cartoonish theme like this. Very cool. Here's another example where the original game is a traditional Chinese style, but you can change this to a traditional water town style instead, and here is what you get. Or you can also upload an image to use as the first frame of your generation. So let's say we upload this image from a GTA scene. Indeed, that's what it generates. And again, this is interactive, so you're able to move this character around. Or here's another example. So this can work across a variety of different characters and scenes. Here's an even crazier example where you can upload a real image, like this is a real photo and not a screenshot of gameplay. And you can control this character. So you could potentially upload your own photo and plug it through this AI and watch yourself moving around another universe. And of course, you can also combine both text and image prompts together. So you can upload this image of a desert as the first frame, and then using a prompt, you can add this character into the scene. Or here's another example of both an image and a text prompt as the inputs. So this is a super versatile and powerful tool. Now, the reason why this is so good and physically correct is due to its architecture. So it consists of these two components, YanSim and YanGen. So YanSim actually simulates the 3D world. In other words, it actually simulates the mechanics and the depth and the physics of everything. And then it uses ControlNet and plugs it through YanGen, which is actually the video generator. So this is in charge of generating the interactive video from the text or image prompt. So these two components working together ensures that the generated video is actually physically correct. Like the character can fall down, it can run into objects, etc., etc. Now, if you scroll up here and you click on the menu, there is this Hugging Face model button, which doesn't really take you anywhere right now, but it does say coming soon. So it does look like they're gonna open source this, which is fantastic. Anyways, for now, if you want to read further or check out more examples, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Next up, we have yet another 3D world generator. Plus, this can also generate panoramic scenes. Now, this is called Matrix 3D by Skywork, not to confuse this with Matrix Game 2.0, which I just featured. These are two completely different tools. Anyways, with just an image or a text prompt, this can create a 3D world which you can explore around from any position or direction. So let's look at some examples. Let's say you have this input image. Well, here's the panoramic scene that it can generate from this. And in addition to this panoramic scene, it can also take this photo and generate a 3D scene like this, which you can explore around. Or here's another example. Let's say you use this as the input image. Well, here's the panoramic view from that image. Notice that it's able to kind of extrapolate what the rest of this image beyond the edges would look like. And in addition to the panoramic image, you also get this 3D world, which you can explore around. Now, instead of inputting an image as the starting frame, you can also use a prompt like an impressionist winter landscape, and here's the panoramic video that results from that. This indeed looks like an impressionist winter landscape. And then here's the 3D world, which you can explore and move around. And in terms of benchmark scores for panoramic video generation and camera-guided generation, it seems like Matrix 3D is the best performer compared to other similar tools. Anyways, the nice thing is if you scroll up to the top of the page, they've released everything already. So the models are all on Hugging Face. Plus, if you click on this code button, it takes you to their GitHub repo, which, if you scroll down a bit, this contains all the instructions on how to download and run this locally on your computer. Now, here it says the generation process does take 40 gigabytes of VRAM just for a 480p panoramic video, and then 60 gigabytes of VRAM for a 720p panoramic video, which I assume most of you do not have. However, it says that they will release a smaller checkpoint, which only takes 24 gigabytes of VRAM. Anyways, all the links are up here, so I'll link to this main page in the description below for you to read further. Now, a few weeks ago, I featured Hunyuan Gamecraft by Tencent when they first announced this. This is another super high quality 3D world generator which you can interact with in real time. And again, this is super flexible, so this can take in a text prompt or an image to use as the reference, plus it can also respond to keyboard and mouse controls. Now, the nice thing about Hunyuan Gamecraft, similar to Genie 3, is that it actually has memory of the scene. So even if you look away and then you look back, it preserves all the objects that were originally there. You can see the Buddha statues on the right don't just suddenly disappear and turn into something else. Or here's another example. Notice that if you look to the left and then you look back, the balloon on the right side is still there. And as you can see here, it's able to generate a variety of different scenarios, from first person to third person. So the possibilities are endless. Now, I already talked about Hunyuan Gamecraft a few weeks ago when they first announced this, so I'm not going to repeat too much here, but this week they finally open sourced this and actually released the code, which is awesome. So on this GitHub repo, you can see they've released the inference code and the models. So if you scroll down a bit, this contains all the instructions on how you can download and run this locally on your computer. Now, here are the requirements that they specified. You do need an NVIDIA GPU, and the minimum is 24 gigabytes of VRAM, but it's going to be really slow. And here they recommend using a GPU with 80 gigabytes of VRAM. I mean, who the hell has 80 gigabytes lying around? But anyways, because this is open source, I'm sure the community is going to act fast, and there's going to be some quantized or compressed versions of this very soon, which can run on even lower VRAM. Anyways, if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Speaking of AI tools, you've got to check out MiniMax Agent, the sponsor of this video. Imagine a team of incredibly powerful AI agents that autonomously help you execute complex multi-step tasks. You can sign up for free, and then afterwards you would simply enter your prompt over here. You can also upload files for it to analyze or connect to other apps. Here are some insane examples. I'm going to get it to give me a financial report on NVIDIA based on 2025 data. Notice that it's automatically scraping the web, and it's collected all this data, and then it's also planning the report. And finally, here is what we get. Here's an executive summary with very nice visuals, and then here's the financial overview. Here's the stock performance. This is so comprehensive. Here's the market position with a ton of insights. And it did all of this from just one prompt. It's also great at creating presentations, so let's get it to create a presentation on the wildlife of Thailand. Again, it automatically knows to search the web to find the most accurate information. And here's what we get. Everything is very beautifully designed and accurate. Again, it's able to do all of this with just one prompt. Notice that over here, for each project, you can choose to share it on their marketplace where agents can be discovered and remixed. You even get credits each time another user remixes it. Or you can also remix other existing agents so you don't have to build from scratch. Plus, they now have an AI agent challenge with 150k in prizes. Sign up for MiniMax Agent today and get free credits to start. Check it out using the link in the description below. Next up, Tencent releases a super realistic and accurate reference to video tool. It's called Stand-In, and let me just show you some examples really quickly. If you upload this photo with this prompt, here is what you get. Look how accurate this is. Or here's another example where we upload a photo of Jan LeCun, and then here's the prompt, and it looks exactly like him in the video. Here's another example. If we have this face with this prompt, here's the resulting video. Again, it looks exactly like the dude in the photo. Or here's another example. I mean, this has got to be one of the best face transfer deepfake tools we have so far. Here's another example for your reference. Now, this doesn't just work with realistic photos. You can also input an anime character, and then here's the prompt, and here's the resulting video. So it can also transfer full body anime photos like this. Or here's another example where we input this photo and this prompt, and here is what we get. This is so good at character transfer. Like, this looks exactly like the girl in the reference image. Now, not only can it do anime characters, but it can also do other objects like this teddy bear. If this is your reference image and this is your prompt, here is what you get. Again, it looks exactly like the teddy bear. The facial features and the bow tie are all completely accurate. Here's another crazy and super realistic example of Fei Fei Li sitting on a boat, and I mean, this looks exactly like her. Now, instead of generating a completely new video from scratch, you can also take an existing video and then just swap the person's face. So for example, let's take this video and let's swap his face with Elon Musk, and here is what you get. Pretty cool, although I must say, the way it makes him smile is pretty unsettling. Or here's another example where we can take this original video and then swap her face with Emma Watson, and here's what we get. So with this tool, it's now super easy to generate any scene with consistent characters and actors. Now, in addition, you can also couple this with another tool called Vase, which is really good at motion transfer. I already did a full installation tutorial on Vase, so see this video if you're interested. But anyways, back to here, you can upload a pose video like this, and then plug it through this AI to transfer this motion onto a reference character. So for example, here's the first photo, and here is what you get. And then here's the second reference character, and here's the result. Very cool. The nice thing is, if you scroll up to the top of the page, they've actually released everything already. So the models are all on Hugging Face, plus if you click on this GitHub repo and you scroll down a bit, this contains all the instructions on how to download and run this locally on your computer. And as you may have guessed, this also uses Alibaba's Wan as the underlying video generator. Now, currently they've just released the models that are compatible with Wan 2.1, but they're also planning to release some additional models for the latest 0.2. Anyways, all the links are up here, so if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. In humanoid robot news, a few weeks ago I featured this video of a preliminary soccer match between robots in preparation for the so-called World Humanoid Robot Games. Well, this event is actually happening right now. So the 2025 World Humanoid Robot Games kicked off this week in Beijing. The event started on Thursday with an opening ceremony at the National Speed Skating Oval, which also hosted the 2022 Winter Olympics. Anyways, this competition runs for 3 days and features a ton of events across multiple categories like track and field, soccer, and this is actually pretty funny. This is exactly like human soccer players, where they just fake injury from the lightest touch. And then we also have boxing and dance performances and a ton of other different categories. Now, right now, these robots are pretty clumsy, but give it a year or two, and I think the capabilities of these robots will definitely be better. And you know, these events of robots competing against each other in sports might actually become a common form of entertainment. Let me know in the comments what you think of this. Now, on the topic of the World Humanoid Robot Games, we have this new demo from Unitree. This time, it's not their cheaper and lighter G1 robot, but the more powerful H1, which is currently the record holder for the fastest humanoid runner out there. It can run at speeds of like 10 to 18 kilometers per hour, which is pretty damn fast. And this beast obviously dominated the racing events, so it won 2 gold medals, at least yesterday, both in the 1500 meter race, where it completed it in only 6 minutes and 34 seconds. I mean, look at how blazing fast this is. I mean, it wasn't even close. This is way faster than all the other robots out there. And then obviously it also got the gold medal in the 400 meter track race, which it completed in 1 minute and 28 seconds. By the way, this is the new running speed record for humanoid robots. And then we also had this boxing event where 2 Unitree G1s fight it out. And then this is pretty cute. We also had the 100 meter group race, which the Unitree H1 did not participate in. And here the first place went to this robot called the Taishan Walker. Anyways, this is going on right now as I record the video, so there's probably going to be a ton of other cute or impressive clips from the event, which I'll update you next week. Next up, we have a new state-of-the-art clothes swapper. It's called Voost, and this basically allows you to virtually try on or try off clothes on a person in a photo. Wait a minute, does this say try off? Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Anyways, here are some examples. For example, you can input this photo of a woman and this photo of a shirt and get her to wear the shirt in the original image. Notice the design and pattern of the shirt are conveyed perfectly on this new image, even though it's a very complex design. Here's another example. You can upload this photo of a woman and get her to wear this dress, and here is what you get. Or here's another example. Notice the shirt here looks exactly the same as the reference photo. Here's an even trickier example, but this does say New York and 9 like this reference photo. So it's really good at actually capturing and transferring the pattern or design. Here's another tricky example with text in the shirt, but for most of the text, it's able to get it correct on this image. Now, in terms of try off clothes, here's what they actually mean. So you can take a photo of someone wearing this shirt, for example, and you can just extract the shirt on a white background in a product photo like this. Here's another virtual try-off example where you can extract the jeans in this original photo and put it in a product photo like this. Here's another complicated shirt with text on it, but it's able to extract this pretty accurately except for some flaws with the logo over here. But for the most part, it's pretty good. And then same with this one, it's pretty complicated, but it's able to extract this and get the pattern correct. So, I mean, with this tool, product photographers, especially for clothing, are pretty screwed. Now anyone can just take a photo of someone wearing a piece of clothing and extract the clothing onto a really nice looking product photo like this. Here are some more examples for your reference. On the left is the original photo. Well, you can get them to wear all these different pieces of clothing, and here is what you get. Notice it doesn't work just for shirts, but you can also swap their pants. And for the most part, everything is very accurate and seamless. Like, it's hard to tell that any of these photos were AI generated. And if you compare this new one, Voost, with other existing clothes swapping methods, Voost just performs a lot better. So for example, let's say we have this shirt with the text Balmain Paris, and then this is your input photo. Notice that the other methods don't really get the shirt correct. Some of them get the text wrong, some of them get the sleeves wrong, like this one and this one, whereas Voost is the only one that got everything on the shirt correct. Same with this vest. Notice that none of the other competitor models could get the vest completely correct. Notice especially the pockets over here and here, but Voost is able to nail this. Anyways, there are a ton of examples on this page. Basically, Voost just outperforms all the other methods. Now, if you scroll up to the top of the page, they have released a GitHub repo, and over here it says a public demo will be released soon. So it looks like they are gonna open source this and put it on Hugging Face, which is great. For now, if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Next up, this AI is super powerful. It's called Fantasy Portrait. This takes any image, even of multiple people, and a reference video, and it'll apply the movements and expressions of the reference video onto your new characters. So here's an example of that in action. Notice that it's able to move the entire head, and it's also subtly moving their bodies as well. Here's another example. Below is the reference video, and at the top is the AI generated video. Notice that it's able to transfer the pose and expressions of both characters from the reference video onto the new video. Here's yet another example. So this is great for creating scenes with multiple characters talking or moving. You can easily film yourself and another friend acting out the scene, and then use this tool to transfer it onto a scene with AI generated characters. Here's yet another example. So this is a super useful tool. Now, a few months ago, I featured another similar tool called Live Portrait, which at that time was the best face animator. This also takes an image and a reference video of someone talking, and it would transfer their expressions over onto the new character. However, that was limited to face only, and it also can't do multiple characters. In other words, you can't transfer the movements of two different characters onto two new characters, whereas this new one, Fantasy Portrait, can do that. Here at the top left corner is the reference video, and notice that you can apply this to a variety of different images, including 3D or sketches. And the awesome thing is, Fantasy Portrait also works on animals. So look at how realistic this is. It actually looks like these animals are talking, and it can even portray expressions and emotions in animals. So notice that this dude in the reference video looks a bit more angry, and that's also conveyed in the generations with these animals. And this isn't just for talking, so this is also really good at capturing different expressions, as you can see in this example. Now, I've featured a ton of these portrait animators before, for example, Live Portrait, and recently Hunyuan Portrait is also pretty good, but notice that in terms of consistency, especially across tricky angles and perspectives, then this new one, Fantasy Portrait, just performs a lot better. Really quickly, here's how it works. So it uses a regular diffusion transformer architecture, which is used to generate videos, but in addition, it has this expression attention component. And this basically helps detect and track different facial expressions in multiple characters across the video. Now, the nice thing is, if you scroll up to the top of the page, they've actually released everything already. So if you click on this code button, this takes you to their GitHub. And if you scroll down a bit, this contains all the instructions on how to download and run this locally on your computer. Notice that they also made the training dataset public, so props to Alibaba for open sourcing everything. Now, if you scroll down here, notice that this could run with as low as 5 gigabytes of VRAM, but it's going to be way slower. And I'm sure because this is open source, the community works pretty fast, and they're going to offer even more quantized or optimized versions for this, which can run even faster. Anyways, all the links are up here, so if you're interested in reading further or checking out more demos, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Now, in addition to Fantasy Portrait, we have a similar tool called StableAvatar, and this can take in a photo of anyone plus an audio clip, and it would make them basically speak and sing and move based on the audio. Now, first I'm going to play you the most impressive generation that they have. Note that when I post this to YouTube, some of these clips might be muted due to copyright issues, but hopefully none of them are, so you can actually hear the audio as well.
I'm trying my best, you to be brutally honest. Nobody's a change, I won't be this exhausted. A fool on no back, it's been making me crazy. How could you let me growing up is chaotic?
How insane is that? Not only is she singing according to the song, but notice that her fingers are also playing the piano completely in sync with the audio. This is pretty impressive. Here's another impressive demo. So how crazy is that? Notice she's actually plucking the guitar in sync with the song. And even for her right hand, she's actually switching the fingers as the chords switch, as if she's actually playing the chords. This is super impressive. Like, I've never seen another audio sync tool that can also animate people playing instruments in sync with the audio. Now, those were the two most impressive demos on their page. That being said, the rest of the demos weren't so great, so here are some examples.
Don't try to change my mind. I'll be cruel to be kind. I can love you in the dark. 'Cause I'm on my knees when I'm begging, 'cause I don't wanna lose you. Hey, yeah. I'm begging, begging you. Put your loving hand out, baby. I'm begging, begging you. Put your loving hand out, darling.
So as you can see, it's hit or miss. Sometimes for the generations, the lip sync isn't really accurate, And I just find that there's a lot of noise around the edges as the person moves around, and sometimes they just move too much and it doesn't actually look realistic. Now, this doesn't just do singing, right? You can also just do regular talking. So here are some examples of that.
As a proud alum of the UW School of Law, I am thrilled that so many students and faculty are joined together tonight at the Park Hotel in Madison. I hope you're all having a fabulous evening.
So as you can see, the lip sync is not that great, and I tend to find that the expressions are way too exaggerated. Anyways, here's a comparison with StableAvatar against other existing avatar animator tools like Echo Mimic, Hello, Hunyuan Gamecraft, and Multitalk, all of which I featured on my channel before. And notice that for fantasy talking over here, this is not fantasy portrait, which I just covered. All right, this is a completely different tool. Now, as you can see here, StableAvatar on the bottom right does look the most consistent and, well, stable, at least for this example. And then here's another example for your reference. What the hell's going on with Echo Mimic? Anyways, as you can see here, StableAvatar is the most stable and consistent. The nice thing is, with this, they've also released everything already. So if you scroll up to the top of the page, you can click on this GitHub repo, which contains all the instructions on how to download and run this locally on your computer. The nice thing is, for a 5-second video at 25 frames per second, 480p, you only need 18 gigabytes of VRAM. So this even works on like consumer grade GPUs. And of course, I'm sure there's going to be more quantized versions of this in the future, which can run on even lower VRAM. Anyways, if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. Next up, we have a pretty cool 3D model generator. It's called VertexRegen, and this generates 3D meshes, which is kind of like a wireframe model. And it can generate these from coarse to fine. You can stop this process at any time to get a valid mesh, depending on how much detail you want. So as you can see, here is one example of this generation of a cat. You can specify how many steps you want it to run this for, and of course, the longer you run it, the more details and edges it would add to this cat. Or here's another example. Now, in terms of 3D modeling, this is kind of like a trade-off between complexity and efficiency. So the more like faces or edges you have for your model, then it's going to be more complex. It's going to take a longer time to load, but it's going to be more detailed. So it depends what you're going after. Now, this VertexRegen is able to pull this off using a very smart technique. So VertexRegen is actually an AI that was trained to reverse this process called edge collapse. This is basically a way to simplify a mesh by reducing the amount of edges in that model. So that's edge collapse, but VertexRegen is basically trained to do the opposite. It's trained to add more edges, in other words, more details to a 3D model, the more steps you run it. And so after training this AI, it's able to generate a mesh from coarse to fine with increasing level of detail, depending on like how many steps you run this for. Now, if you scroll up to the top of the page, it doesn't look like they've released or open sourced anything, and there's no indication whether they will do that or not, but they have released a technical paper. So if you're interested in reading further, I'll link to this main page in the description below. And that sums up all the highlights in AI this week. Let me know in the comments what you think of all of this. Which piece of news was your favorite, and which tool are you most looking forward to trying out? As always, I will be on the lookout for the top AI news and tools to share with you. So if you enjoyed this video, remember to like, share, subscribe, and stay tuned for more content. Also, there's just so much happening in the world of AI every week. I can't possibly cover everything on my YouTube channel. So to really stay up to date with all that's going on in AI, be sure to subscribe to my free weekly newsletter. The link to that will be in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.